Isn't that peaceful? We're so blessed to have Jeff with us, aren't we? Yes. Love his music. It's always a shock to get up here. All right, I brought the two basic tools of everyone in the ministry in America, the Bible and Strong's Concordance of the Bible. This means if I want to know what the Bible says about anything, I get to look up the Word and find out all the places in the Old Testament and the New Testament, in the Torah and everything else that it has been used. And when I decided to look at the word gratitude, of course the word gratitude is not very often used in the Bible, but the words thanks and thanksgiving and a few other things are used, so that's very nice, and I was able to use that. Strongly recommended, if you're at all interested in what's in this book, to get one of these. So, as I say, the word gratitude is not considered a major term in the translations that we have of what was written in the original Hebrew and the original Greek, and to some extent some Latin. So we're going to use the word thankfulness for what is talked about there. And it's fascinating because it's not very common in the Torah or the prophets or the kings or the chronicles or any of those, what we call Old Testament in the Christian world books, and it's consistent in the New Testament, particularly in the letters, starting with Acts. There's not much even in the Gospels. There's just a few references where Jesus gives thanks. So it's not fundamental to the Judeo-Christian tradition to be thankful. Isn't that interesting? Who would have thought? Right? But it is in our practice of our spiritual life. And the reason it is fundamental to the practice of the spiritual life is because it works. And I want to talk a little bit about why it works, as well as how it has emerged or been used in the Judeo-Christian tradition. So the first thing that was, came up was, okay, it was Thanksgiving this last week, and Thanksgiving is a great American holiday that is not celebrated virtually anywhere else in the world. Why is that? Right? A feast of Thanksgiving. Almost no other nation has it. Some people would suggest that part of how this nation became the great nation that it was, aside from the fact that it is a huge area of resources to draw on, was the fact that people were saying thank you. They were honoring the fact of things coming to us and for us from this and in this world. Our first official day of Thanksgiving was George Washington, when the war was over and the Constitution was being ratified. And he declared a day of Thanksgiving, that this was all coming together. George Washington was very unusual in doing that, but he was drawing on an Old Testament experience, and that was when King David declared a day of Thanksgiving because the Ark of the Covenant had come finally to a home, the home that he had envisioned for it for his life for so many years, for so much of his life. And he declared that all of Judea, all of the Israelites would come together in a feast of Thanksgiving. So George Washington drew on that when he declared our first American Thanksgiving, which was not in the fall, it was in the middle of the summer. So it wasn't about the harvest, it was about coming together. And I noticed in this week's Sears Law Register News, is that what it's called? Sears Law News? It's the Register Guard, right? Sears Law News. That your editor, Ned, he's something else, isn't he? As we enter into the holiday season, and especially the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, I hope we can all take time to gather around the table and talk about what we're thankful for in one another. The things that unite us in appreciation and a common good that defines us as a family, community, and ultimately as Americans. I know that that wasn't easy for everyone this weekend to do that. But I know that that effort was made in a lot of places. I spent the week traveling all over the country, and I was seeing that over and over again, people choosing to say, I appreciate this about you. I appreciate this about where I am. I appreciate this world as, in the way it gives things to me. And again, it wasn't because anybody told us to. It was because, as Mary said, we realized it works. It works to be thankful. It works to be grateful. And the first time we see it used as, if you will, a tool is in the New Testament, and we see it in the miracles of the loaves and the fishes, where Jesus takes a small amount of food, declares thanks for it, and it becomes more than enough for all those who are present. And I think Abraham Lincoln was drawing on that use of thanks and gratitude when he declared the first Thanksgiving, that's the series we are now in, which was in the fall of 1865, before the end of the war. He declared a national day of Thanksgiving to help us begin to end the war. Now that's using the power of gratitude, right? And it was in that same line of thinking, I think, that the fourth day, it was originally the last Thursday of the month of November, and is now the fourth Thursday of the month of November, was declared to be an annual day of Thanksgiving. Not for anything in particular, not because some wonderful thing had happened, but because we know that when we are in that state of gratitude, wonderful things do happen. Now, how is it that that is so? I'm going to have you chant a song. You up for that? All right. Some of you know it. It's by Karen Drucker, and it's Thank You for This Day, Spirit. Right? Now I'm going to sing, and then you're going to respond like that. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
Is that too low? Do we need to go up a little bit? I thought maybe. Okay. I'm going to do it again. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends.
Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends.
Now look at each other. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends.
My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends.
Someone say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this love, Spirit. Thank you for this love.
Thank you for this love, Spirit. Thank you for this love.
This healing, this healing, this healing 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 love.
I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful 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 day.
So if you're not feeling gratitude, you know what to do. I have used that many times to begin to wake my awareness up to the wonders of the life I'm living, right? And as we are lifted in that awareness, our whole energy system, the whole body-mind is going, oh, yeah, I can do this, right? Even when we're upset, we can start thinking that and chanting that and singing that, going down the road. The car is wonderful because the car will adapt to whatever rhythm we want. And it'll reinforce that. So, yes, use a chant like that to begin to wake up that energy of gratitude. Because literally you are uplifting your own biophysical energy, and by the way, the National Institute of Health calls it the biofield, the human biofield. All right? So we're going to bring up the biofield and charge it up a bit by saying words like that. Even if we don't really feel it at the beginning, by the time we finish the song and done it a few times, we're going to start actually feeling it and generating that energy. So as we uplift our own energy, an amazing thing begins to happen. We are a field of energy, and we're surrounded by a field of energy. And that field of energy is constantly radiating. We are like, antennas, radio, the radio antennas. You remember those big, tall radio things that used to be out and everywhere, and all the local stations would be beaming out their radio signals from them? That's who and what we are. Isn't it cool? We're signal towers. So what is it that I'm radiating? Well, if I'm focusing on, if I'm feeling fear or distress or uncomfort or anger or any of those things, I'm literally dampening the signal. I'm damping the signal. I am making it less possible for who I am to be radiating out there. But if I can amp up my signal and ignore or override or undo the upsets, I can begin to radiate more of what that wonderful feeling is. And there's an amazing thing about that. We don't exactly know how the physics works, but we're getting there, where what we are radiating draws back to us what we are radiating, more of that. So what I am grateful for, I will get more of in the world. What I am upset about, I will get more of in the world. But the gratitude, as I said, is not dampened. It's enlivened, it's expanded, and so we get more of what we are grateful for. Isn't that marvelous? Yes. Yeah. And that's why the days of Thanksgiving are important. And that's why when we had a nation that focused on what we were grateful for, we had a nation that was becoming great. We had a community, a land, a set of resources that were being made more useful and more effective and having a beautiful impact on the world around us. We stopped saying grace, we stopped being grateful, somewhere in the 60s. It was the time when, for most of the baby boomer generation, we were going, this is just rote words. I don't want to just repeat rote words. I don't know. I don't mean that. I don't know what it really means. And I was watching even my daughter, who has two children, is very, very spiritual, very religious, all of the above, and wants to have this really rich spiritual life. But someone at school taught her 9-year-old daughter rub-a-dubs. Yeah. So that's now the preferred grace at the table. Did everyone hear what she said? No. Rub-a-dub-dub. Thanks for the grub. Yay, God. Obviously, it didn't quite penetrate. And I love the concept, but it became something that didn't have the meaning that is intended for that experience. Because two things happen when we say grace, when we express the gratitude. Not only are we attracting more of what we are grateful for, that is, we get to experience more good, delicious food, yay. We are also transforming whatever we are focusing our gratitude on. Now that's the other interesting thing. Now those of you who've taken my Water Remembers workshops are familiar with this idea, and those of you who are familiar with the Masaru Emoto water crystal photographs may be familiar with this idea as well. Whatever we are putting loving energy around, well, any kind of energy, angry energy, it gets yucky, loving energy, it gets more and more beautiful, more and more healthy, more and more in alignment with the good of our being. So, loving, grateful energy, praise and gratitude, love and gratitude make the most beautiful water crystals. Absolutely gorgeous. And heavy metal music made the ugliest ones. So if we can begin to realize that the act of saying grace is not only saying, yes, I appreciate what I've got here, it's also encouraging having more of what I've got here, and it's making sure that what I've got here is in alignment with my best life, my health, my well-being, my joy. Yes? We have a couple of seats over here if you're welcome.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
So if we recognize that, then we begin to realize that this act of blessing our food is an act of blessing for us and the food, but it's also an act of gratitude which expands and attracts more of what it is we're looking for. Okay. As I said, we're not really clear about how the physics of this works, primarily because the fields we are talking about don't seem to register on our measuring devices for electromagnetic fields. They may be that they are electromagnetic, but outside of our capacity to measure them, or they may be a different kind of energy. And a number of people are suggesting that it is actually the energy of that which exists below the electromagnetic. Okay? So what I'm talking about here is, in New Thought words, it's the substance. In the quantum terms, it's the quantum field. And the quantum field is all of the non-defined, undefined, discriminated, non-differentiated stuff that becomes matter and energy. Okay? It's wavicles, they are neither particles nor waves. It's charges that aren't quite charges. My two favorites in the quantum field are the fermions and the bosons. And the fermions are the tendency to go apart. Fermi, split the atom. So fermions go apart, and bosons are the tendency to come together. They're the tendency to come together. And Bose is an East Indian physicist who, with Einstein, discovered that there are certain things that are so tightly connected that you can't treat any part of them as separate. The whole is one whole. That's called a Bose-Einstein condensate. There, you've had your jargon for the day. So we're looking at something here that is tendencies that seems to form something like fields that have shape and qualities, but is not measurable as energy or matter. And that seems to be what the gratitude we can generate is the tendency, the Bose tendency, the boson tendency to come together. So in gratitude, we're drawing and collecting and supporting and sustaining the wholeness. Does that work? Good. I love it when we can make intellectual sense out of woo-woo stuff. So what we're looking at here is how can we experience more of that which we wish to experience more of, right? That's all we're looking for. And the most amazing thing is, all we have to do is be thankful for what is here, for what we wish to experience more of. That's it. In the work that I do, in the spiritual work that I do, one of the phrases is, the fastest way to feel your connection with the divine is to experience praise and gratitude. Isn't that fascinating? I mean, there's so many ways to do it. Chants are a good way to do it, right? Looking at something incredibly beautiful or delicious is another way to do it. Tasting something incredibly delicious is another way to do it. And that's why a lot of spiritual practices invite us to slow down and really see and really taste and really experience, to be mindful of what is happening. Because then we're more likely to enter into that state, to generate that field called gratitude. When we're in a rush, we don't generally take the time to feel that, do we? We just go one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. We don't have to live that way. Especially not at the age most of the people in this room are. We definitely not, when we pass retirement, do we need to be rushing from point to point. Oh my, yes. And you know, one of the things that I've discovered is if I can be grateful for having enough time to get someplace, I have enough time to get someplace. I had a friend in ministry school who lived at the opposite end of town from where the classes were, you know, half-an-hour drive. And classes started at 1:30, and it was 1:25 when she put down her book. She got into class at 1:30 because she was immediately grateful that she was aware of the time before class started. She managed to travel all the way across time in time to be in class at 1:30. And this was documented. I don't know why time will stretch, but I have seen it happen over and over and over again. When someone is already in that state of gratitude and appreciation for having it all work, it all works. I made, I think, 7 plane trips in the last 10 days, and different connections and so on. And the very first one was out of Eugene, and it was 29 degrees. And the de-icer wasn't up and running yet at 6 in the morning. And so we sat on the runway for 45 minutes, and I had a close connection at the next stop. And I'm going, not getting upset about this one, right? I'm just so grateful we can be de-iced. I'm so grateful we are going to be there on time, and all of that sort of thing. And, you know, officially, when the plane landed, I only had 30 seconds to make my connection. However, actually, when I got to the gate, I had 30 seconds to spare. Wasn't that interesting? I was apologizing to the stewardess, the flight attendant that was holding the door open, and she said, "Oh no, you're fine. We have 30 seconds. I'm not really. How do we do this?" And I'm going, Albuquerque! And it worked. So when we're in that place, it's like space-time bends around us. And that's part of why the New Testament points out that in Jesus' life, when he was grateful prior to the event that he was requesting, the whole event worked out perfectly. And that's what we're invited to do. And I know that there are so many triggers, and you know, Ned talks about that in this editorial, Ned Hickson, about how there's so many triggers, so many things coming at us all the time, trying to get us to be upset. It doesn't work. So we slow down, and we find something absolutely beautiful, absolutely delicious, something so delightful that all we can do is be grateful. For that is how the world is transformed. Thank you very much.